Sandeep here. I'm just recording this quick video, for you. It might take about 4 or 5 minutes, and would really be grateful if you could, take a look at this video till its end. Sir, as you're aware, I'm currently working on the evidence-centered design of measuring higher order, skill sets using games. So for one of the client, what I'm proposing is to actually use components of AI and then see how the higher order skill sets could be measured. What I'm showing you right now is the prompt engineering part which gets fed into the AI system. What you're seeing here is, for example, I'm setting the context to the game, which is I'm building a you know role-playing simulation game which simulates the role of a consultant. To be more specific, an emerging consultant who works under senior consultants. The objective of the game is to measure the skills and competencies, of the game. And today I have stated that I'm measuring these three skills in terms of decision making, critical thinking, problem solving, and risk measuring propensity, which each of this having its own sub competencies. For example, decision making, through various research papers, we have found that it has the sub competencies in terms of ability to gather data, analyze data, look for alternatives, implementing solutions, and understanding the impact of such solutions. What I'm asking the AI to do is to compute the adjacency metrics where every occurrence, here occurrence is defined as every time the player responds to a question in the game. So this is basically a task that will get presented to the player within the game. And when that happens, each of these occurrences, we would start measuring the zeros and ones of every single occurrence. What I've done is to set the context of what the player would be seeing in the game. Now the non-playing character or the avatar in the game is going to be played by the AI, and the player would be interacting with the AI avatar. So here what happens is the senior consultant is the AI avatar who is handing over the project to the junior consultant, and he talks about a particular problem. So here in this particular case, I've taken my own prior experience of working with banks such as HSBC and Citibank, where I've taken one of the examples of a current account opening process, which is one of the challenges where it takes about on an average of 45 to 60 days in certain complex cases, and about 18 days for simpler cases, while competition is in a position to do the same in 7 days and 15 days respectively. So I've also provided a little bit more information on the case in terms of what are the potential problems identified by the internal reengineering team. So here I've stated the game scenario where I've said that the senior consultant would be talking to the junior consultant, and the junior consultant could potentially ask any kind of questions where the primary task is for them to prepare a report. So here what happens is I've fed certain AI logic, which is in terms of what are the acceptable questions in terms of its boundaries and responses that could come by. What are the acceptable steps which the consultant would perform based on the prior experience. And I've given certain irrelevant questions in terms of asking questions on who are your competitors or implementing any kind of IT solutions rather than jumping into probing or understanding the root cause. So from a scoring logic perspective, so I've said if the player is asking any questions that fall under the acceptable questions category, then respond with options that are relevant, and how a senior reengineering specialist would respond. And not only that, start marking in the responses as well. So for example, if the player is directly jumping into providing solutions and not gathering the right amount of data, I've asked them to mark the response as zero against all the sub competencies in the adjacency metrics for decision making. Similarly, I've said if the player is asking the right kind of questions which falls under the acceptable questions category. So here the primary operating word is similar intent, sir, which means the player could potentially ask any kind of questions, and then you would be able to measure them right here. Now what happens is I've asked the computer to respond in two lines succinctly, in acting like a senior consultant, and I've also asked it to measure each of these parameters and then give me a logic. So now let me just run this particular program in ChatGPT and show you what the responses are. Uh, so here I go. So the first question that I'm asking is how about implementing a BPM solution? This is directly jumping into implementation, and ideally the systems should not really, respond. It should say it's great that you're thinking about, solutions, but right now let's focus on gathering data to understand the current process from a scoring logic perspective. So each of the competencies, if you see, for data gathering, it's zero, analyzing is zero, looking for alternatives, decision making is zero, and it could also give me data on problem solving and others, as well. Now as I progress and ask more questions, so here I've just listed down a few, possible, right and wrong questions here, which is I'm going to ask, does the company have a process map? Now this is the right kind of data, gathering. If you actually see your data gathering, is actually, mapped as one. I could say, show me adjacency. So it gives me the adjacency, matrix for, this, one, question. And likewise, I could go ahead and then ask the other questions as well. So for example, in terms of, this is one of the right answers which are there. So if I provide the right answer, it gives me a response. And not only that, it measures my, other competencies, as well. So let me just show you the, previous runs that I've done, sir. So here what I've done is, for each of the occurrences, I've asked it to measure the adjacency matrix, and I've also asked me to give it, a degree centrality score. And when I asked it to visualize, obviously it asked me to, look for the paid version of ChatGPT. So I see a huge potential here, specifically when it comes to story-based games and, gamelets and other aspects that we are currently working on. Uh, Earlier, we will have to manually mark all of these responses, and then we would need to get experts, to validate each of these. But now, what could interestingly happen is, after the initial level of validation, the number of possible outcomes that could come, could be, tremendous, and we could have an interesting possibility of measuring higher order skills. I just thought I'll quickly record this and then send it to you, sir. Thank you.